Mike dropped 30 pounds in 6 months, built more muscle than he's ever had, and got his son to stop him mid-workout and say, "Dad, you're ripped." He's a vice president at a major retail company, in his 40s, travels constantly, client dinners every single week. And he had already lost 65 pounds on his own. But that last 20 pounds felt impossible. He was completely stuck for 12 months. Running every single day, lifting weights in the gym, eating stricter than ever, but his body stopped responding. This is exactly what a metabolic crash does for high-performing men over 35. In this video, you're going to see exactly what changed for Mike after metabolic reset. Let's get into it.
I think I was sitting at like 192. At the lowest part of our cut, we got down to 163. So like 30 pounds basically.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we added about 10 pounds back of muscle. The first thing I started noticing very quickly, I was like, man, my pants are sliding off me because my waist was going down. So my wife was like, wow, like this is crazy. Like a month or two into the program, I was in the gym and I was kind of like taking some progress pics. My son came down and he's like, whoa, Dad, you're ripped. And I was like,
wow.
yeah, and I was just like, oh, that was pretty neat, right? It was a pretty good feeling. And I feel like I'm gaining more energy, even though I'm like getting older. And I got plateaued for like ever. And you hear so many different things. Obviously, you look online. It was just so hard to figure out what's the next, like, what's that right formula. In the food part, I was, basically kind of almost starving myself where I was storing more fat as opposed to burning it. Now it's like, no, I'm eating the foods I love. It's crazy what you do when you have the right formula, as you put it. That phrase of, oh, tomorrow, it's such a dangerous lie. So I think that just make time for your health because, at the end of the day, like without it, the other stuff doesn't really matter.
Well, maybe just for context, where were you then, Mike, before starting with us?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I had started the journey quite a bit, and then hit this roadblock. I'd lost quite a bit of weight, and that was really just by like a little bit of improvement on nutrition and activity. And then, almost not with intention, I guess is probably the best way, like obviously intending to lose weight, but the stuff I was doing, it was just a little bit of everything. And then I just got plateaued for like ever. And I had it in my head, like, you're not doing enough. So I'm like, I'm adding more activity and adding, it must be eating too much. So less food, more activity, and, borderline just burning myself out and just not getting any results. And that was I remember our first call, and it was basically like, you need to eat more and do less, and that's gonna be, and it's kind of like, okay, that sounds good. But yeah, so I think that's where I was at. When you hear so many different things, obviously you look online, and it was just so hard to figure out like what's the next, like what's that right formula. And I guess the one thing for me was just not realizing, I guess, the consistency piece. It was like I felt like I was being consistent. I was like running every single day, as you know, and I was eating clean, but not with intent, or sometimes just eating the foods but at the wrong times and the wrong combinations of not matching the activity level or whatever. And so it was just a feeling of kind of being stuck and frustrated and definitely fatigued.
That's very interesting because, again, like, I already knew that you were busy. You're your father and you have a career and you got a lot of things going on. And then you're disciplined. You were like, in the program, you showed what discipline can do, right? But before that, regardless of you still had that discipline. You were still trying a lot of stuff. What was the most frustrating part, do you feel? What was it that you felt, was the most frustrating thing before you started working with us?
I think just not getting results. Like I still had that goal of that last, 10, 15 pounds I wanted to lose, not building like, muscle that I was lifting as well as running every day. And it was just frustrating. And it's like, how can this be like that you're not getting results doing as much as I was doing? And I think that part's frustrating. You just think like every day you kind of get up, you check the mirror, you jump on the scale and you're like, it's going to be good today. And it's like either like plateaued or sometimes like gaining weight. And I'm like, this doesn't even make any sense, right? And I think that was the frustrating part, because it's like, wasn't a lack of effort, wasn't a lack of like discipline. It's just a lack of, knowledge really was the big thing for me.
Yeah, knowledge. Did you feel that what you were doing at the time was going to get you to where you wanted to be?
Well, I did for a long time, for sure, because a combination of that got me down that first big chunk of weight. it was really when I went from being, average or slightly below average to wanting to be really fit and active and just feel great about myself. That's where I couldn't get that next step. And that's where the mindset was like, it's just, you got to do more. You're not doing enough. And you got to lift heavier. You got to run farther. You got to eat less or something to that degree. And and that was, it was definitely the biggest challenge starting was probably mentally, right? Just that mindset shift that, less is more.
Yeah. It was a perfect example of you pushing and pushing and pushing, but you kind of hit a wall. And did you ever feel that your body stopped responding somehow? Because obviously, you're not in your 20s, but you're not old either, right? So, but did you feel like your body, your metabolism, kind of like I immediately knew something when I was listening about running every day, when your metabolism, something was off.
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, I had just kind of hit 40 and, you hear like, oh, it's all downhill after 40. Yeah. I was like, I refused to believe that, but I definitely probably was at that point where, I'm like, it must be like, is it really like an age thing? Is this, and almost there's times where you almost feel like that defeat. I guess this is like as good as it's going to get now. And I started too late or whatever that might be. And that was kind of, luckily my discipline is a little stronger than my mind trying to be like, just it's as good as it gets. Right. So I kept pushing, but it felt like it was probably age was starting to factor in, like the metabolism isn't what it used to be, I guess. And thought I tried everything, to be honest.
Yeah. And then just for context then, because what do you typically do? Or how do your days go? What do you do for work?
So for work, I'm a vice president of a large retail company. So, it's 8 to 10 hours of probably a combination of 50% sitting, 50% light moving around, but not like a lot of physical activity. I'm pretty good at like fitting in between breaks and stuff like that. But for the work itself, it's a lot of meetings, a lot of travel. You're in car, you're on planes, hotels, etc. So
yeah, and I can imagine like with the travel and the long sitting hours, was that ever a challenge for you like before? And how is that now? Sure. I think that's a good parallel. How was the traveling before? How did you manage with that? And how do you manage that now? Because a lot of people will be interested. You're a vice president, you're in your 40s, and then you shred it. and then you did that fairly quickly. So, and when you have a demanding lifestyle, like usually it's what overwhelms people as well, like pushing more, being burnt out, but then you cracked it. Yeah. Like, what was the biggest clear difference, would you say?
I think before, to be honest, I almost started getting like, because I was at that point of frustration and I have a trip coming up, there's a conference and it's in like Las Vegas and it's like, okay, that's great, exciting. Food options are challenging, like you're up late naturally, all that kind of stuff. Sleep's not as good. And I'd almost kind of push myself like I have to like work way harder before and then I'll have to work way harder after. And it's like the whole time I'm there is going to be a write-off and I'm going to, have backtrack. And you'd almost unconsciously have like a bit of anxiety about it from my fitness perspective. And then I think too, it's like even when you think you're making like good choices like in restaurants, and that was one of the great things working with you guys is like understanding like what to look for, especially eating out. And the food and the macros, like we talked about that, and the knowledge around that is just like wow. So it's like all the things you like probably think are like the best options are usually the worst. And that was so great. I remember I think we were maybe like first or second month in, and I had a trip that was like 7 days, and I remember it's like okay, like kind of like thinking ahead, like so like working with you and Torrid, it's like okay, like what places, like what are the menus, what are you, and then he challenged me, what do you think you're gonna have, this and this, and it's like no, those are the worst choices. So, whereas now it's like understanding that just thinking about the things like the oils, the sodium, all that kind of stuff that you don't necessarily, you're like, oh, I'm getting a salad, it's really good, meanwhile it's like the dressing is like terrible. And so now it's just I don't even think twice about it. It's just kind of like it's another day of the week for me, whether I'm at home or traveling, and it's freeing, I guess is probably the best word for it, because now it's like you go in, you have the knowledge of here's the things you got to aim for, and timing of sort of eating in between, like that was another part I didn't really think of, not really properly having nutrition before like a big workout or following the workout, or just kind of I was eating probably a lot later than like now I do, because work and kids, you just don't really think about the impact of always eating late. And then when we were starting with like the fasting in the morning, just like not even just how much easier that makes things, but then it's just like you just feel like more clarity when you get in that zone. So So yeah, now it's like it's pretty easy for me to eat out, and I don't get anxious about it, and I still be able to hit all my goals. And yeah, it feels good. It feels no worries about traveling now. In fact, it's
Oh,
like I can just enjoy like being present, enjoy the
right.
good food, and not worry about it. And I think the biggest thing too is knowing that, sometimes like the scale might go up. It's like I already know what to do if I want it to go down now.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference. Whereas before it was like you're trying so hard and it just won't move, and then all of a sudden you travel and it goes up a couple pounds, and you're just like, okay, I'm already struggling to get it to move. Like it's like, okay,
Mm.
I'll run further, I'll lift
Yeah.
more. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that's been the big difference for me, is just that, I guess, confidence, and that being free, like when you're going, of anxiety around that. So
That's awesome. You said a lot there because I saw immediately it's not just confidence in how you look and feel, it's the confidence in that you are in control, right? Like
yeah,
no matter what happens, if you're traveling, seems like it feels second nature for you. Would you say that's right? Like second nature, like it's
yeah,
more like just a way of life now. Kind of like you
absolutely.
probably are doing a lot of things now that you didn't do before, and you're not even thinking about it. It's just become like a part of you or habit or almost like a standard as well, I think is a good word.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to frame it too. And I think too, it's just you're like you said, it's second nature. You don't even realize. I don't even think I realized how much I learned until like you're just kind of out and you start doing it. And then, especially if people, it's funny because sometimes people will be like, oh, like, where do you fit all that food? And I'm just like, and it's interesting because like people ask, like I have had more questions. I lost, about 65, 70 pounds prior to working with you guys.
Yeah,
And then the last like 20 was like
it was
nearly
tough.
impossible, it felt like, right?
Mm.
And then it was like just like gone. And I've had more questions in this, like, how did I do this last little bit, as opposed to
Mm.
the huge transformation where
Yeah.
it's like a completely different person. And it's interesting, like that's when I realized like how second nature it becomes, because it's so easy for me to just be like, oh, it's like,
Mm.
this and this and this, you got to do this. And as I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh wow, I like, it's really sunk in now, and it's just who I am and what I do now.
I love that. I can almost imagine like you coaching your peers or your family, or like, no, don't eat this, eat that. And then you start explaining why. It almost becomes like I'm, for instance, when I'm walking in a supermarket, I'll always get my organic eggs, so I have a reason for why I buy certain stuff. Same when I'm traveling.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear you talk about it, Mike. And I wanted to ask, that 10% was interesting. That like you were able to work your way down to 60, 70 pounds, but then boom, hard stop. And usually
Yeah.
a lot of men also are not like super overweight, like many other vice presidents or business owners. They just want to lose that 10%, but it just won't move. It's
Totally.
just like a complete halt or a plateau. And what do you feel was the most surprising thing then that allowed you to crack that final 10%?
I like I said, the first call, like you basically told me, like, and I'd already tried doing a few things just following even your videos, and you basically were like, hey, you gotta eat more and stop running as much, and and like you're working out too much. And I'm like, okay, this sounds crazy. There's no way this is gonna work. But I trusted the process. I went through it, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, not only did I have like more time and energy, but the results started coming like immediately. I think in like the first week it was like 1.5 pounds, and it was pretty much like consistent, like week after week.
Mm,
And that was just, I guess the message is like, it's about like, this is the right way to do it. And then it's just about being consistent and patient, I guess, was my biggest say. That's probably where I fell short before, is just you try something for like 2 weeks and you see nothing, and it's like, hey, that's not the right thing. And you see some video that, oh, you shouldn't do this, you should do this, and I'm like, oh, no wonder I'm not getting results. And
mm,
yeah, so I think that was kind of the biggest surprise, was just like understanding that you don't need to do like
no,
20 hours a week in the gym, and 50 kilometers a week running,
no.
and eating like a pigeon, right? Like you can actually, and I think too, that's the biggest win for me too, is like you can enjoy like good food, right? Like it's sometimes it's about cutting out certain parts of it, right? And that was, a couple of things I remember chatting back and forth in the beginning, and it's like, oh, like this is the type of oil we're using. It's like, okay, that's like a huge issue. It's like, hey, that one's gone. And it's like, oh, wow, that made a big difference. And just like little changes and stuff you just don't necessarily know, because everybody seems to have their own opinion about which is the best and which is the worst. And
And I feel like most people think that they need to change their entire lifestyle to get results. And you mentioned like small things. And then the small things was what got you to freaking change that quickly in a 6-month period. And like, did you ever feel though that did you have to sacrifice a lot? Or Are you still eating the food you love, drinking nice wine? You know, how did you feel
Yeah.
now about the lifestyle aspect of everything? Is this the
Yeah, no, I
same?
don't. I don't feel like I had to. In fact, because I had been sacrificing, it felt a little bit like this was a cheat code I had found because I literally, like I said, it's like I started running a little bit less. I started enjoying running a lot more too because now it's not like a chore. I'm doing it because I love it, and I'm doing way less of it, so it feels better on my body. Working out less, and in the food part, I was basically kind of almost starving myself where I was storing more fat as opposed to burning it.
Yeah.
And now I was learned through this, oh no, you can enjoy the foods. And then learning, like diving deeper into that food part, it was like sometimes it's not about not enjoying the foods, but like the ingredients you're using. It's like making some of those smart swaps and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And that was so yeah, I remember when you had said like here's like I think the initial like 20-30 recipes to try out, I was like, I can't eat this stuff. This is like way too good to be true. And then so it's like you start diving into like here's this like massive portion of like creamy garlic protein pasta,
I
and it's
remember
like
those.
I was like, what? Like this is never on my list here, and it's like this is great. So yeah, I think just learning to love food actually is probably it was definitely not what I was expecting going into it, and now it's like no, I'm eating the foods I love and getting great results. So it's pretty fantastic.
Incredible. You were the perfect example of a metabolic crash. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like pushing, 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 and your body not responding. And then within 7 days, it opens up, right? Your
Mhm.
hormones are back on. How's your energy now? Is your energy better? Or I guess if we just quickly go into the results, what were the biggest, I guess, changes that you realized quickly, benefits that you noticed that you're very fond of today, whether that is muscle mass or fat loss or energy? What was your favorite part of the transformation that you clearly noticed quickly?
I think probably the fat loss. I think like I lost weight before, obviously, but just like seeing that fat loss go down and starting to see like the toning coming like in like the abs and then arms so that was kind of like the first part of it, and then we quickly shifted to like the muscle mass, like adding muscle mass. And to me, previously, I kind of had the mindset, well, you can't do both at the same time. And then learning that you can, that was just like, it was great. And yeah, from an energy perspective, it's interesting. It's like, I feel like, and I keep evolving, as more time goes, and I feel like I'm gaining more energy even though I'm like getting older. And so that's like just probably the best part. And I think that it's interesting like talking to peers and people that are maybe a few years older or similar age, and hearing them sort of sound very similar to how I was previously. And it's so funny because they'll be like oh, like how do you like do that, like you have so much energy, and then you explain it to them and it's like they almost are like, well, if you're not going to tell me the truth, that's fine. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like this it is that easy. It's just about being consistent and really honing in on a few small things. But yeah, no, it's been great. And I think again, just knowing, I mean, we went through like a large cut phase, and then we started like adding like that bit of a like the lean bulk back in.
Yeah.
And so it was so interesting to kind of like just be in so much control of that, and be able to kind of do that a couple times throughout the process was really interesting. And to understand, like when you like, I think just really understanding how in tune I am with my body now. And I can feel like if I'm on a cut, for example, and I need to do like a refeed and how to properly do that. And yeah, so I think just the control is like pretty amazing of just being like, okay, we're going to shift gears and go this way. And I actually know how to do that now. And I know when to do it. And I know what it feels like to do it. And it's pretty awesome. Even just that just really gives me a lot of energy, right? Because it's pretty great when you have that full control.
Yeah, it's kind of like that formula that we wanted to show you quickly, like, okay, let's get your results as quick as possible. Let's get you to start losing fat and get you motivated. And then you start feeling it. And it's almost like you start doing stuff with it. And now you know how to lose fat, build muscle, you know how to travel, you know how to enjoy the food you love and your father. It's like what I wanted to ask quickly though, because of that transformation, right? Not everything happened at once. How much did you lose again before the program, and how much did you lose during the program? Do you know?
Yeah. So I mean, the very first time that we chatted, I think I was sitting at like 192, and at the lowest part of our cut, we got down to like 163. So like 30 pounds basically.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we basically kind of added about 10 pounds back of primarily muscle. And that's kind of like where I'm still sitting. And, like I kind of gone up and down a few times intentionally. So it was a pretty remarkable journey. I remember each time thinking like, that's impossible. There's no way I could ever be that. Like, that's way too much. And it's crazy what you do when you have the right formula, as you put it, and obviously the motivation to do it.
Yeah. What was the first moment where you thought like, holy shit, this is working?
Actually, it was it was between our first call and before we actually formally started.
What?
Because I remember when we chatted and you had just told me like a few things and you were like, this is what I do like every week. And I'm thinking that's impossible. Like it's less than I'm doing. And like, you have great results. Like, how is that possible? And so I remember just thinking like, okay. And you'd kind of talked to me a little bit about the nutrition piece. Like it's going to be like this. And so I was like, and I think we had a call, the first like kickoff call was about a week later. And so after we got off the phone, I thought, well, I'm not going to wait a week. Like you just told me some of the things that I could do. And then part of the reason that we got on the call, which was because, which I always appreciated in a lot of your videos, you give, it's not like a teaser, but you have to get on a call with me. You're actually showing, here's things you can do to start seeing result. And so I put a few of those into practice, and it was like, I think by the time we started, I was already down like almost 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds before we actually had started, just by following what you have talked about like online and then on our call. So, I mean, previously I was like, okay, the last like 20 weeks or whatever it's been, I'm down like 1 pound doing all this stuff. I make like a few tiny tweaks and it's like, I hadn't even started yet. And so I think that part was crazy. And then when we got into the first week and you supplied all these like, formulas or these recipes to try, I was like, okay, like I started meal prepping like that night. And it, like I said, it felt like just a constant cheat day. It's like, these foods are awesome. And they're like, I actually had increased a little bit of what I was eating because I wasn't eating enough at that time. And it was pretty awesome. And then I was like, kind of in my back of my head, I was trying not to be negative, but I was like, I'm gonna gain weight this week. There's no way. And then I was down even further. So that was where I was just like boom, like this is crazy. Like this is gonna work. And I think each week it just kind of motivated me more to just keep pushing and pushing. And and it was great. And then the challenge kept going up as we went through the process. So.
You're also very good with the progress pictures. And I was like, no way. Boom, boom. Boom, next week. And I was like, wait, is this happening this quickly? I was getting quite shocked. You were getting ripped. It was actually very interesting.
Yeah, you know what? And that was actually one of the things I really appreciated was just, here's the proper way to measure. Like, don't get so hung up on the scale. And because, of course, you add muscle, like it's heavier, right? So, and I think that was one thing that was probably hard for me to wrap my head around for the first little bit. And I remember it was like, nope, take a picture. You'll see small differences, even if you don't necessarily see them on the scale. And I would like take the picture and I'd be like, yeah, I think it looks better. And then I remember on one of the calls, Torn's like, no, like look at one from where you started.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, wow. Like I hadn't really, because you're looking day to day, you don't necessarily see it. But then all of a sudden I look at the beginning picture to now and I was like, oh, wow, this looks like a year's difference. Like, and it had been like a month or 2 months or whatever. And so I think that was really beneficial too, is just getting a little bit more clarity around like how to kind of measure results. Just don't get so hung up on, the scale.
It's more about how you look and feel. And I was like, if you look good and feel good quickly, that's so important, right?
Totally.
How did your family react? I remember, did the kids or your family or anyone react well?
Yeah, it was funny because the first thing I started noticing very quickly, I was like, man, my pants are sliding off me because my waist was going down. So my wife was like, wow, like this is crazy. And I remember probably maybe like a month or two into the program, and I was in the gym and I was kind of like taking some progress pics. And I remember my son came down and he's like, whoa, Dad, like you're ripped. And I was like, wow. Yeah, and I was just like, oh, that was pretty neat, right? It was a pretty good feeling. So yeah, because sometimes you don't always notice it. And I know the one thing I felt I was so appreciative of is right off the get-go, it was like, okay, like that picture you started with, like that's the person you're competing with or comparing to or whatever you want to call it, as opposed to like, here's a picture of Chris Hemsworth and here's me.
Yeah.
And I think naturally that's kind of what you do when you don't really know what to do, is you're like always looking at these, other people. And when I started started comparing to myself every week, I was just like, yeah, like that's awesome. Like I was pretty happy, and it was a really big change in my mindset there. And after that, it was, now I'm like looking, and even now I had like a big, like this week I had a fairly big arm workout, and I was like sitting there and I was kind of like, oh, I should take a pic. And then I like, because I remember I had a pic that I sent like when I was on the program, and I looked and I was like, oh yeah, like there's definitely some gains from so it's kind of neat, like when you start doing that as opposed to comparing to others, right?
Yeah. And I think, what was the biggest difference then between before and after, you say?
Like from just like my comparison?
Feeling or life, feeling on life. Do you feel like things are different now somehow, or like do you feel like a new man?
Yeah, like I always had felt like good, losing a significant amount of weight, obviously, just from a health perspective, of course. But I think now it's just like I just feel confident, and I didn't even actually realize like how much that makes a difference just in everything you do, right? You get up, you get dressed in the morning, and it's like, all of a sudden you just look and feel good. When you put on your clothes, they fit better. The same shirt looks better than it did before on. It's like the shirt hasn't changed, but and I think when you kind of, for me, like when I leave the house after like feeling like that, it just really sets the tone for the day, and it just feels more positive. It just kind of it kind of carries forward into everything else you do. And I feel like just probably overall happiness is it's not that I still don't like, sweat like crazy trying to continue to get better every week or anything like that. It's still tough. It's still hard, but I think the fact that it's like I have like a plan in place, I know it works. I know it's going to just continue to get better and better over time. That whole, piece in my mind that was constantly thinking about that, even when I'm, doing other things, it's like, oh, it's almost lunchtime. I have to go out for lunch today. It's like, oh, what's that going to look like? I don't even think about that. It's not even in my mindset anymore. And it's really just provided a lot of probably like mental clarity, or a time for mental clarity, I should say, for everything else that I'm doing, whether that's work with my kids or whatever. So it's been pretty, and I've noticed, just other things too, just feel like more improved and better. I think just because I have more energy and more mental clarity to focus.
Isn't that a nice feeling to know that you cracked it? So I would say early, like, there's men in their 50s and 60s who are kind of like, you're just kind of like, let go. Like, this is me now. I just like not having the energy, or, carrying all this unhealthy belly fat. And that's what I want to ask you. What do you feel? Was there like a fear? Like, what if you were to stay in the exact same place as you were, if nothing changed in the next 3 years, would have that been bad?
I think so. I think for me, like, it was just, I was at that frustrating point. And I mean, because it's like with your physical health and your appearance, it's not like something where you visit it once a day or whatever, like you carry it 24 hours a day. So to me, it was kind of, I felt like I didn't realize it till after I had made the change, the transformation, but it was negatively carrying into other parts of my life because I was just frustrated. And, even just like back, for example, like before, I had like, I was like constant. I'm just like, oh, I just have a bad back and it's like not gonna ever go away. And now it's like my back's like so much stronger, and it's like been a focus and now I'm like, yeah, I don't even have that back pain anymore. And it's like, it's pretty awesome because, whether it's like, lying on the floor with your kids or whatever that might be. Whereas before it'd be like, oh, I would get frustrated because I'm like, oh, it's like sore now because of this. And so I think that, I think it would have been an issue, and it, especially from like I think a mental health perspective, because I wasn't happy with it. And I think it just would have just continued to like pile on, and I'd still be trying like, trying all these new things and being frustrated that they're not working, and flipping every, 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and why doesn't this work? And
I think you would still be putting in the work regardless of the results, because you have that discipline regardless. But it's very good that we were able to change so quickly. And what I wanted to say is, like, did you ever, I just want to tap on one thing. I remember you had said you had an ice bath moment where you went out of the ice bath and man, your kids or something. Was that true?
Oh yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. So Yeah, that was my son as well. It's funny. So my son's like he's plays hockey, so he's an athlete, and he's at that point. He's 16 now, so he's like being more aware of like his own physical body and how he
Okay.
looks and stuff like that. So it's been pretty cool because there's been like several moments actually like that where and yeah, there were that. So coming out of the ice bath would be right at the end of my workout there. So I already had like you have a good pump on and come out there, and
Yeah.
that was another one where he was just like commented like wow, and that was probably right at like the very end of my cut there, so it's like
Oh, you want
body
to
fat's like
feel.
just
Yeah.
way down, and yeah, so that was pretty neat, and it's pretty cool when you see that's like kind of motivating
Yeah.
like other people like that, especially your kids. Yeah,
You
it was
smile
kind of
at
neat.
them.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a good one. Yeah, I remember that one.
And those moments I just love. I think it's just so cool when like whether it is your family or your peers or even like yourself. Like I remember when I was skinny, I was like I really started to like you started to see results. I mean like whoa, you suddenly see something like that you haven't seen before. And based on that, then what were your limiting beliefs before you started? Was there anything where you feel like nah, 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 nah. Were any limiting beliefs present that you felt were either
Uh,
holding you back or anything that you were a little bit on the fence with?
yeah, I mean, I think I didn't really believe that I could probably get to the point where I'm at today. Again, like you kind of start to think, oh, it's an age thing, it's this, whatever it might be. I remember I just don't think I really believed that it was possible because you feel it. Well, especially like, I just felt like there's nothing I haven't tried, and there's not like a lack of effort or energy, and it's just it's pretty deflating to be honest. So yeah, I just think that it was the ability to like drop that body fat. I just like you said, it was kind of like, oh, this is I guess the way it is, and I'll just try to make the best of it. I think is kind of where I was at, but there was just part of me that just also refused to accept defeat.
Yeah.
I guess whether that's from age or whatever. So luckily that led me to just keep pushing
Wow.
and then eventually connecting with you. So
What did you think then when me and you hopped on the call the first time? Did you think, this guy's a load of shit? Like, what is he saying? That's impossible. What did you
uh,
actually think when I was telling you that what was really possible for you? Because I believe that every man, regardless of age, whether you're 60, 70, like you just need the right tools, as simple as that sounds. But for you, like perfect example that the smallest things can make a huge difference. What did you think when we were first talking?
it was weird because I think right off the get-go, I felt like pretty good, like chatting, like I felt like we connected right away. So there was kind of like that immediate trust, but it felt like probably like a bit of a guarded trust because you literally were like, oh, you got to stop doing this. And I'm like, okay, do less, eat more. I'm like, oh, okay. Like it sounded a little too good to be true.
Yeah.
And again, it was kind of, I was like, if this works, this is gonna be so great. Because first of all, it's like I'm thinking though, like this is the only thing I haven't tried is doing less. It's always like I was always increasing. But yeah, no, it was I can't remember exactly how you said it, but you had said something about around consistency, and you had said that you basically had a variation of the exact same workout you've done for like I can't remember how many years you said, but I was just like, what? Like seriously? I was like, I've never done one longer than maybe like 4 months. And I remember you said something about like, well, that's part of the issue, right? Like, and I was kind of like, okay. And I mean, so as we got off the call, it like I processing it and I'm like, okay, I mean, it makes sense, but yeah, like it definitely felt like this is too good to be true. But I mean, the one thing that I really liked though is it was like you were like, here's like some like real life results, and it was like, oh, these are like people that it's not like you took like this guy that's already like ripped and you made him more ripped, and you're kind of like, okay, that's great. It was like,
Yeah.
wow, these people look just like me, like they're like normal people that are need that 10-15 pounds gone, and then it's like this is what they look like, and you're like, wow, like that's what I want, right? So it was like there's enough proof there that okay, like it must work, right? But yeah, no, it definitely was. I was excited about the possibility about it being true, but maybe like small part of me is like a bit skeptical.
And that's allowed to be a little bit skeptical, especially when I like to always be confident with fitness because I'm like, I'm going to call you out. I'm going to be like, you can be so much better. Like, this is your potential. Tap into that potential, right? I want everyone to just know what's possible for them. What clicked in your mind then? Because I can't just believe that I was one. Something clicked in your mind or made you actually say, okay, enough. I want to fix this. What was it that clicked in your mind or made made you actually commit?
I think like probably about 2 weeks prior to us actually like talking, I think that, like I was at that point where just, I guess, the boiling point of frustration and I was going through, and I can't remember specifically like what I was like searching. And then that's where I kind of had stumbled upon one of your videos. And it was like, here's like, it was one about body weight workouts if you're traveling.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, that's like, oh, I never thought about that. Cause it's like, I would be like, oh, is there a gym at the hotel? And it's like, no, there's not at this one. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess like I'm not working out or whatever. And so I had actually saved that one, and then I done it because I was actually away for a couple days. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna follow this guy who's like, seems like he might know what he's talking about. and then it was just like there was, like I said, that was what was so cool. That's definitely what made me probably like reach out, because it was like, it wasn't just like a teaser, like, but I'm not going to actually tell you anything. And it was like, here's like stuff you can actually use. So I'd already like implemented some of those things just following and watching the videos, which was so great. And then it was like you had posted a couple about like food. And that's when it was kind of maybe clicked to me like, okay, maybe this is like not about not doing enough. It's about not doing the right things.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just don't know. I don't necessarily know what the right things are. And everybody says it's something. And that's where I was kind of like, okay, and I can't, it was one of those ones where it was like, if you're tired of this, then like you were like, comment below. And yeah, I think it was just a couple of those things like you had already kind of given, not even knowing me, had given me a couple of tips that I was like, okay, this seems like maybe this is the route I need to go. And I'm like so thankful and blessed that happened, because obviously it was pretty transforming for me.
How cool is that you were able to find, you were able to find your way through the tips. Like you were still like trying to piece it all together. And then before you know it, I knew immediately when you were, we were starting to interact, and then we started talking. And then when I sat on a call with you, I knew like, this guy, he's gonna do it like in a good way, that he's gonna really achieve great things with his body. Because I can usually see as well on your body type that, again, you weren't terrible. You actually had great genetics. You just needed kind of like the right advice. Right. And it's so easy to just take everything. Right. And I think that's more damaging than good sometimes. Is just because someone else is doing something doesn't mean that you should do it. It really has to suit you. Right. And that's what I want to ask is, if, let's say, what would you say, Mike, to another, let's say, busy business owner like yourself, or father, or executive, or just a busy professional who is over 35 and he's just not happy with his health, his body, and he's been stuck. He's been spinning his wheels for a while. What would you tell him?
Oh, I think, I have had this conversation with a few people that I know in this similar situation. And the number one sort of thing you always hear is, I don't have time, like, or when I have time. And I usually kind of try respectfully to kind of challenge that, because I just think it's so interesting, whether it's like financial planning or your education or anything like that. Like, people spend time, energy, resources, learning what to do, investing in it. And then when it comes to like health, it's like, it's always pushed to the side. And that's where I always just encourage people, like, just start with something, start small, right? And I actually just had this conversation a few weeks ago with a friend of mine who's, in that frustrating, like, oh, nothing works. And it's like, but they're not really doing anything. And I was like, why don't you just try like walking, like 30 minutes, like every day, just get like that walk in and just start with like that one small win. And then like add something onto it. Like, don't try and do like, you go from nothing to everything, week one sort of. And I think that was kind of my big takeaways from working with you guys. It wasn't like you were like, here's 100 things to do day one. It's like, here's the first thing we're going to do. Here's like a, very effective but simplified workout plan. And I remember thinking like, this is like nothing, like how like, and but then you go through it and you're like, ooh, that was a sneaky one. There's some real intent behind like things, the moves and which muscles you're hitting and stuff like that. So you start to learn like, okay, the next week it's like adding this and then adding this, and you start putting it all together, and then the results just keep coming. So I think that's what I always kind of try and talk to people about, is just like, it's make one small change to start, then add the next one. And then it's about consistency. And for me, I was like, the one thing I feel very proud that I avoided is I never wanted wanted to have some fad diet or something like that, where it was like I quickly like it's like, oh, great results, and then I stop, and then it's like right back to there. And I think that was the other part that I was so thankful. It was like my whole goal was about like tweaking the lifestyle. Like I wanted to like what I do to get there is what I do after. It's like that's what I wanted. And that's the other conversation. It's because a lot of people are, I can do this for like 90 days and then I'll just go back and it's like those short-term results are also gone in that time frame too, right? So but yeah, just make the time for your health the same way you do for everything else you do, right? And I think that I just find it really interesting, the journey I've gone on thinking about, and I've been there where I've, like I always say, like, that phrase of like, oh, tomorrow, like it's like, that's such a dangerous lie.
Yeah.
And so I think that just make time for your health because, at the end of the day, like without it, the other stuff doesn't really matter.
No, wow. I love that answer. It sounds like you made it a lifestyle. Would you say that with confidence that
Absolutely.
fitness is now a lifestyle for you?
Absolutely, yeah.
I love how you say just focus on that first step. Focus on the small things first. Don't try that. If you really want a serious change for yourself, I think that's where you also got to be cautious with what do you add into your life, right? Does that make sense? Kind of like if you already got so much going on and you are a vice president, then adding in 6 workouts on top and then meal prepping and then 10K steps and then all these other things is just like, no one's going to be able to stick to that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I really appreciated about the program in the beginning, especially was like there was a lot of intent of like getting to know, okay, like what's your regular schedule look like, and then everything we kind of added in, it was about fitting it into like my lifestyle, my schedule. Not okay, if you completely change your current lifestyle and your schedule, you can win here, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna be able to do that long term, right? So, and then it was even just around like when we were going through like fasting and stuff like that, it was like, okay, like what time do you normally get up, and just so much like effort and intent to plan around my schedule and how I could fit it into my schedule and then maintain it moving forward. And I think that's why like I just feel like the results were so much not easy but easier than they would have been if I'm trying to if you're here like, okay, you have to do this at 5 a.m. every day, and I'm like, okay, but that doesn't work because I start work at 6 or whatever, and you're like, oh, it was like, okay, we can adjust that and we'll adjust it around your schedule because it was really tailored for me, which obviously I really appreciated, and it just made it I think more successful but easier to be consistent moving forward.
You made a very good point there. That's the trap, is if it's not sustainable usually from the beginning, as a red flag, because what are you gonna okay, Scotty's gonna stick to it for 4 more weeks, 8 more weeks, how long can you hold on? Because we're gonna come to a point where life comes at you, and if you can't sustain it, you're gonna fall off, right? And that is already mentally, it's like a defeat, if you fall off and you start again. So I think for anyone watching, you're the perfect example that if you do the right thing, you get some. That's why coaching is so powerful, is because it's not like we get the neighbor's workout plan and give it to you. We listen, okay, what does Mike need? What does his body type need? And what does he want to achieve? And it could be as simple as you having that in the first week, and then you start repeating it and then building upon it. Of course, there's things, more advanced workout principles, which you were quick to adapt and, more meal recipes, but then it was usually just small things that carried on into your life. And before you knew it, you had kind of cracked the formula very early on. I think we're already in month 3. I felt that you were doing the same things, but results were just getting better and better and better. And that was like, oh, okay, now Mike's on it. And that's when I knew that you'd done it. 90 days is usually the mark where a habit actually becomes a habit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it was a great experience. And the thing that I probably am so appreciative about it was, and right from the get-go, like you had talked to me about, it's, this isn't like about, we want to sign you as a client, and then we're going to set it up so if you ever stop working with us, you're going to lose the results. It was like, we're going to build you like habits and results that like you can just maintain moving forward. And I felt like that right from the beginning, right through the whole process. It was like except for the fact that you get so like you enjoy the connection and stuff like that, and the meetings and stuff like that. That part was hard to walk away from, but like I left with so much confidence. It wasn't like, okay, now what do I do? I wasn't even panicked. I was like, I've got this. And now it's like I really enjoy, even just planning out the week and what's my workouts going to look like, and what's the meal prep going to look like. And then it's interesting because it's even got to the point where it's like, even it's become such habit, like I don't have to do the meal planning everything to the same degree. Like I just know what's good to eat, what's good not to eat, when to eat, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just giving those skills and knowledge so you can take it and be successful on your own. That was super great.
Powerful. I appreciate you hopping on today, Mike. So that's Mike's story, and he said something at the end of a call that really struck with me. He left the program and wasn't panicked, wasn't wondering what to do next. He just knew he had it. That's the goal. Not just get ripped for 90 days, but to own a system for life. If you've been told that getting lean is about more cardio, less food, and more willpower, then you've been pointed in the wrong direction. A metabolic reset is not another diet or workout program. It's fixing how your body responds to food and workouts so you never have to follow those extremes in the first place. This is essential after 35, because if you are a business owner, executive, or just a busy professional, then your body has changed, which is why we do a metabolic reset. And after 7 days, you'll already start losing fat like Mike. If that's what you want, book a consultation call below. Link is in the description.